What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, and we bring to you more information on environmental toxins. So once again, let me just revise with you for those who may not have been with us last week. How does lead enter the human body? In Nigeria, in particular, there is a cosmetic product known as Tiro that is used on the eyes, and that is a great source of lead into our bodies in this part of the world. And then leaded fuel, which thankfully has been phased out for the most part all over the world. Leaded paint is the one that we're battling with right now. Many paints still have lead. Paint manufacturers still use lead. There are alternative ways to make paint without lead, and that is what is currently being discussed, and advocacy is going on in that direction. And then dyes, airplane fuel, old plumbing materials, tobacco smoke, textiles, car batteries, bullets, for guns, and then artisanal mining activities. These are different ways in which lead comes into the body. Now, the general population is exposed to lead from either the air or from the food that we eat in roughly equal amounts. Okay? During the last century, lead emissions to ambient air, that is outdoor air, have caused considerable pollution, mainly due to lead emissions from petrol. But thankfully, that has changed to a very large extent. Children are particularly susceptible to lead exposure due to high gastrointestinal uptake and the permeable blood-brain barrier, particularly in children. When children ingest things that contain lead, their digestive tract can easily and rapidly absorb those substances, the lead, in their food. Then blood levels in children should be reduced below the level so far considered acceptable, because recent data indicating that there may be neurotoxic effects of lead at lower levels of exposure than previously anticipated. Okay? And lead in petrol has dramatically decreased over the last decades, thereby reducing environmental exposure. But the use of lead-based paints is one thing that must be abandoned. It must be jettisoned. Lead should not be used also in food containers. In particular, the public should be aware of glazed food containers which may leach lead into the food. Most human exposure to lead occurs through ingestion or inhalation, like we have said. From 20% to 70% of ingested lead is absorbed into the body. When lead enters into your mouth and you swallow it through your food or your drinks or whatever source, 20% to 70% of it is absorbed into the body, with children generally absorbing a higher percentage than adults. Now, when fine particles of lead is inhaled, it can also be absorbed directly through the lungs, or it could also be carried by the mucociliary tree, to the throat, where it can be swallowed, and then it is now absorbed via the gastrointestinal system. Leaded paint is the major source of high lead level exposures in children in the United States and in most other countries of the world. As higher lead content, paint begins to deteriorate, and they peel off the wall, they chip off the wall, and sometimes they are scraped off during renovation. I remember when my house was renovated and repainted, you know, the workers had to, first of all, scrape the old paint off the wall, and they had to really, sandpaper the wall, and they even had to do POP, you know, I don't know what they call that thing, put POP on the wall again before they now applied new paint. So all those renovation work makes the leaded paint, particles and dust to fill everywhere, you know, and sometimes paint crumbles due to friction, particularly in window sills, in steps, in doors, and what have you. And then so house dust and surrounding soil may then become contaminated from all of these. And lead then enters the body through normal, you know, hand-to-mouth activity, particularly in children. Lead is also a component of tobacco and tobacco smoke, and smokers have higher blood levels of lead than non-smokers. Secondhand smoke may also contribute to increased blood lead levels, what they call BLL, okay? Eliminating secondhand smoke, you know, your exposure to secondhand smoke may actually help in reducing, you know, lead exposure, particularly in children. You see, some children are living in homes of parents that are smokers. The children themselves don't smoke, but their parents do smoke. And so the children are exposed to the lead in the secondhand smoke that the children inhale. Or maybe you share an office with a smoker. You don't smoke, but you inhale the secondhand smoke from the smoker. You are also being exposed to lead in that fashion, all right? Lead dust concentrations usually, you know, ingested during hand-to-mouth activities can actually be a major source, particularly for children apart from smoke. Lead can also enter our skin. You know, dermal exposure plays a role for exposure to organic lead among workers, you know, but it's not considered a significant pathway for the general population, but for those who work in areas where lead is abundant. Organic lead may be absorbed also directly through the skin. Organic lead, such as tetraethyl lead, for example, is more likely to be absorbed through the skin than inorganic lead. And dermal exposure is most likely, again, more among people who work with lead or materials that contain lead. Now, so let's look at some key points in lead exposure pathways. The first pathway is ingestion. Second pathway, inhalation. We have dealt with those two. And the third one is what is called embedded or retained lead, okay? And then transplacental transmission. Now, for ingestion, which is the most common route of exposure to lead for children and the route that commonly leads to elevated blood levels, then inhalation can be a significant exposure pathway as well, particularly for workers in the lead industry and those who do DIY home renovation. They want to renovate their own homes by themselves. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you are not trained in how to take precautions, then you better use professionals to do it for you. Now, persons who do some hobbies like stained glass making, soldering, and what have you, because the material we use in soldering electronics is also made of lead, all right? And then smokers, children exposed to secondhand smoke, those are all inhalation pathways. Almost all inhaled lead is absorbed into the body, okay? Children, of course, again, just like ingestion, also generally absorb higher percentage of lead through inhalation than adults because they have a higher respiratory frequency. And then embedded or retained lead, you know, foreign bodies can be a source of ongoing lead exposure. If you have anything that is embedded into your system, it can be leaching lead into your body from time to time. Sometimes lead that is stored in our bones, depending on the season of life, can begin to get released from the bones back into the bloodstream. That would be an example of an embedded source. The lead is already embedded into your bones. It is there, like we said, for up to 30 years. And during the 30-year period, there are certain seasons and moments in life where more calcium is needed in the bloodstream, and the body will mobilize the calcium from the bones into the bloodstream. And while calcium is being mobilized, lead is also being mobilized from the embedded source into the system. And the fourth one is transplacental exposure to an unborn child, which can happen if the mother is exposed to lead. So the key points for lead exposure is ingestion through the mouth, inhalation through the nostrils, embedded, maybe the ones already stored in the bones, and then from mother to baby in the womb, transplacental placental exposure. So no matter how toxic a substance is, one thing we must get clear is that that substance cannot harm anyone unless exposure to that substance occurs. And so there are different, levels in the process for any toxic metal to become toxic to us. The first one is exposure. You must be exposed to that substance. After exposure to that toxic substance, then there must be biological uptake. In other words, your body must absorb it. When it is absorbed, then it travels around the body and makes contact with certain target organs. It could be the kidneys, it could be the liver, it could be the lungs, it could be the bones. But there are target organs and tissues where that toxic material that your body has absorbed will go to and settle there. And once it settles into that target organ or tissue, then physiologic changes or biologic changes will typically occur. And this gives rise to derangement, either in the structure of the organ or in the function of the organ. Again, let me start all over. For any toxic substance to impact our health, the first is that we must make contact with that substance. We must be exposed to that substance. Either the substance is in the air, or in the water, or drinks that we drink, or the food that we eat, or that our skin makes contact with. Don't forget, I already mentioned that the ones that we swallow from our mouth, they are called ingestants. The ones that we inhale through our nostrils are called inhalants. The ones that, make contact to our skin and are absorbed through our skin, they are called contactants. And the ones that are injected into the body are called injectants. These are different routes, different roots, UK English, different routes, American English, okay, that these things get into our body. Now, so we must first of all be exposed to that toxic substance. We make contact with it. And once contact is made, then our bodies will absorb them. There will be an uptake of that substance. Then it heads for some target organs and tissues in the body. Then it begins to exert some physiological effect, causes biologic changes, physiologic changes in the body. And those interference and changes that the substance makes in the body then gives rise to certain forms of derangement, either in the structure of the target organ or tissue or gland, or in the function of that gland, or the function of that tissue, or the function of that organ. And once there is derangement in function or structure, then dysfunction takes place. And once there is dysfunction, then uncomfortable symptoms begin to arise, which gives rise to a disease, okay, or an altered behavior, or sometimes even fatality, death, right? And you see, when it comes to lead, which is the member of the gang of five that we're looking at right now, we looked at aluminum last week, now we're looking at lead today. Now, lead toxicity can affect every organ system in the human body. And that's why I took the time to explain, the different places where we come in contact with lead and how we need to watch out so that we don't get exposed to lead. The nervous system is, however, the most sensitive organ system to lead exposure, particularly in children, the nervous system. And there is no safe level of lead in the blood, no safe level. Now, once lead is absorbed into the body, lead may be stored for long periods in mineralizing tissue, like our teeth, like our bones, and the stored lead may be released again into the bloodstream from time to time, especially in times of calcium stress, particularly during pregnancy in women, during lactation, when women are breastfeeding, and when they're experiencing osteoporosis, loss of bone density, or when there is calcium deficiency. These are special times when the embedded lead in the bones begin to get released back into the blood, and then you can see elevated levels of symptoms showing up again in that individual during those seasons of life. Okay, now on a molecular level, proposed mechanisms for toxicity for lead involve fundamental biochemical processes. Now, these include lead's ability to inhibit or mimic the actions of calcium, and that can affect calcium-dependent or calcium-related processes in the body. And it can also, lead can also interact with proteins in the body. And that includes, those with what we call the sulfhydryl, amine, phosphate, and carboxyl groups. All right. Now, lead's high affinity for this group of substances makes it particularly toxic to multiple enzyme systems, including the heme biosynthesis, the ion biosynthesis in the body. So once lead enters into the body, it can interfere with the activities of other minerals, particularly iron. Now, we're going to come back after this short break and begin to look at lead toxicity in children first, and then lead toxicity in pregnant women, and lead toxicity in the general population, in the adult population. And then, of course, like I said, towards the end in this particular season on environmental toxins, we will now propose ways to eliminate lead already inside the body and reverse the damage that it may have caused within the system. Don't go away. I'll be back very shortly after this short break.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at the 5F Conference coming to you this September. This one-of-a-kind conference is designed to focus on 5 key areas: faith, family, future, finance, and fitness. Prepare yourself for an extraordinary session with our dynamic 5F Conference speakers, Reverend Tony Akinyemi, Pastor Wole Abayomi, Professor Bamitale Omole, Pastor Wesley Ogude, and Reverend Austin Upohe. Secure your spot now at 5fconference.tsfchurch.com.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.
Discover the secrets of optimal well-being, explore nutrition, exercise, and many more as our expert instructors guide you through this transformative journey. This comprehensive training will take place from 28th of August to the 1st of September 2023, with sessions running from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily at 18 Shogunle Street, off Mobolaji Bank Anthony Way, between Sheraton Hotel and Eko Hospital, Ikeja, Lagos. Whether you're a beginner or someone seeking to deepen your understanding, this training is perfect for all levels of knowledge and experience. For any inquiries or further assistance, feel free to contact us at 0806 7020 412 or email us at registrar@rafainstitute.org.
Welcome back. This is still Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, coming your way every Monday evening, 8 p.m. West African time. This beautiful Monday evening in the month of August. The month of August is going gradually to an end. Again, thank God for His grace for the past 8 months of the year. 2/3 of the year already gone, and God's grace has brought us this far. And the grace that brought us this far will take us successfully to the end. The remaining 4 months of the year, I pray, will be your best months for this year in the name of Jesus Christ. Now, as we look at lead, how lead gets into the body, and the toxic effects of lead on our body, and how we can get rid of lead from the body and reverse the damage that lead may have caused in the body, I want us to now zero in on lead toxicity in children. Now, while the immediate health effect of concern in children when it comes to lead is typically neurological, it typically primarily and majorly affects the central nervous system of children, yet it is important to remember that childhood lead poisoning can also lead to health effects later in life. When a child is exposed to lead, like the ones we put in their eyes, tiro, when they are young, when they are babies, when they are infants, when they are adolescents, sometimes even teenagers, we put tiros in their eyes, it may not show up at that moment. It continues to build up in their system. And then the effects, the chronic effects, the long-term effects now may begin to show later in life. And those effects can include things like ADHD, for example, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. When a child, maybe in primary school or junior high school, is now diagnosed with ADHD, many parents will not even connect the dot or link it to the exposure to lead that child had. I'm not saying that lead toxicity is the only cause of ADHD. I'm saying that lead toxicity can be a cause or a contributing cause. On its own alone, it can cause it. In combination with other toxic substances, they can form a synergistic effect and cause it. And that child may experience delayed learning and even have lower IQ. And that will impact on that child's school performance. You now call that child a dullard, coconut head. Whereas you don't know that because you were not aware, because you were ignorant, you allowed that child to be exposed to high amounts of lead that is now impacting on the IQ of that child, that is making that child to become hyperactive. And, the long-term health effect of lead on children later in life can also bring up such situations like developmental problems with their, as they are growing up, growth, retardation, developmental problems, mental acuity, and what have you. Mothers that have heavy lead in their body can also have developmental problems in their offspring. Now, later in life, when the child is exposed to lead when they are young, either from the womb or in infancy, later in life, it can give that child hypertension. And that's why many times when adults come down with hypertension and they are diagnosed with hypertension, doctors will say, oh, what you have is essential hypertension or primary hypertension. And essential hypertension or primary hypertension is that type of hypertension whose etiology is unknown. They will say, we don't know the cause. We just know that it happens, when people reach a certain age. They become hypertensive, and then they begin to look at family history. They begin to pin it down to heredity. Quite often, it could be the lead exposure that child had when he was young or when she was young, and then now in adulthood, the child now develops hypertension. Okay? Lead exposure in childhood can also cause kidney problems in adulthood, renal effects. It can also result in reproductive problems when that child has problems with fertility. Adverse health effects of lead toxicity, exposure to lead in children can occur in blood lead levels that is even less than 5 micrograms per deciliter of blood. Less than 5 micrograms per deciliter of blood can cause adverse health effects. And the most common of these include, attention-related behavioral problems, decreased cognitive performance, and greater incidence of problem behaviors. When you see that child is troublesome, that child is problematic, that child is delinquent, that child is playing truancy, I'm not saying that all cases of, problem behaviors or decreased cognitive performance or attention-related behavioral problems are due to lead. But I'm saying that lead can also cause them, okay? Not all cases are lead-related, but lead can also cause them. Not all cases of hypertension are lead-related, but lead can cause hypertension. Not all cases of kidney problems, kidney impairment is due to lead, but lead can cause kidney impairment. Not all reproductive problems are due to lead, but lead can cause reproductive problems. I hope you are making the distinction. Yeah, that's the point that I'm making. Now let's go to, from children, we move on to pregnant women. Okay, now it must be emphasized, however, that there is no known blood lead level for children without some level of risk or some adverse neurological effects when it comes to children. Any amount of lead that gets into them must exert some negative effects. There is no level that is so safe that it will not exert any effect. Now, the effect may not be very, very glaring, very, very obvious, but then it is there all the same. Maybe they have like residual, it may be very, very minor that you may not even think of it. Now, when it comes to pregnant women, sufficient evidence shows, okay, that when a pregnant mother has blood lead levels as low as less than 5% micrograms per deciliter of blood, that this could be associated with reduced fetal growth or lower birth weight for the baby eventually. So pregnant women who were lead exposed as adults may also experience many of the neurological symptoms experienced by children, although their own symptoms may begin to manifest at higher lead levels than in children. Now, some women may develop eclampsia and preeclampsia with pregnancy, and then maternal blood levels may be important predictors of the risk of developing eclampsia and preeclampsia, okay? There's sufficient evidence already that shows that blood lead levels less than 5 micrograms per deciliter of blood are associated with decreased renal function, and that blood lead levels of less than 10 micrograms per deciliter of blood are associated with increased blood pressure and hypertension. All right? So lead can impact in those very, very many ways. And in pregnant women, there is also sufficient evidence that when pregnant women are exposed to lead, it can lead to decreased postnatal growth for their babies, and concurrent blood lead levels that are in the children of those mothers who were toxic with lead, and that can lead to some kind of reduced, head circumference for the baby. It can affect the height of the baby and other indicators of growth, as well as cause delayed puberty in those offspring of those mothers who were toxic with lead when they were adults. Now, let's now look at the effect of lead on the adult population. We've looked at children, we've looked at pregnant women, but the general adult population. Now, the neurological effect of lead toxicity or exposure to lead in an adult, it can be also neurological, and it can also be in different other organ systems in the body. It can cause, things like neuropathy. That may be different from those, of an adult exposed to lead as that from a child. The manifestation in that of an adult may be different from the way it manifests in the child, because when the child is exposed to lead, the brain of that child is still developing. But when an adult is exposed to lead, the brain has fully developed, okay? So the effect it will have on the child will be different from that of the adult, okay? Because for the child, lead can tamper with or interfere with the development of that child's brain. But an adult whose brain has fully developed, the impact it has on the brain is different from the one of the child that is just developing. Now, childhood neurological effects, including ADHD, may persist into adulthood if it is caused by lead. Lead-exposed adults may also experience many of the neurological symptoms experienced by children, but then the amount of lead to trigger that, those symptoms will be higher than that of children. Now, other effects in adults when they're exposed to lead is reduced sperm count in men, which means it is already impacting on fertility. Just like it does for women, it also does for men. It leads to, low sperm count, oligozoospermia. It can also lead to hypertension in adults. However, sufficient evidence shows that, blood lead levels of less than 5 micrograms per deciliter are associated with decreased renal function, and those that are less than 10 micrograms, associated with increased blood pressure in adults, just like we found in pregnant women. Okay, now, so lead, like I said, is one of the very bad boys out there. Lead can inhibit the bodies of growing children from absorbing calcium. It can inhibit their body from absorbing zinc. It can inhibit the absorption of iron. And these are all minerals that are needed for proper brain development as well as nerve development. And once lead inhibits the absorption of these important minerals, iron, zinc, calcium, for proper brain development, proper nerve development, that is going to affect the overall neurological and musculoskeletal development of that child, including the immunity of that child and the spermatogenesis that should occur in that child, sperm production. Children often show no signs of lead toxicity earlier in their lives until they are in school. And then you now begin to have expectations for academic achievement, academic performance, in high IQ. And when you now see that the child is not doing well, that's when you begin to raise questions. What's going on with you? Particularly children that come from bloodlines of very brilliant and intelligent people, and suddenly you find that the child is not as brilliant and intelligent as the parents and the grandparents, who were geniuses. Something could be happening. Acute exposure to lead can be one of the factors. It can also produce encephalopathy in children. And according to the Center for Disease Control in the US, CDC, they say, and I quote, that medical research has established a connection between early childhood lead exposure and future criminal activity, especially of a violent nature. According to researcher Wright and his colleagues, published in 2008. And then Needleman and his colleagues also published a similar research in 2002 and another one in 1996. Okay? Numerous studies link elevated bone or blood lead levels with aggression, destructive and delinquent behavior, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and criminal behavior. These are all, documented at the website of the CDC in America. Different researchers like Wright and his colleagues, Brown and his colleagues, Needleman and his colleagues, Nevin and his colleagues, Bellinger and his colleagues, all of them published these articles, from the 1990s to the 2000s, 2004, 2002, 2003, 2008, different articles published in this regard. Now, lead exposure can cause brain damage that can lead to 4 different problems in the neurological central nervous system. 4 different problems, 4 categories of problems as a result of brain damage caused by lead exposure. One has to do with cognition. That is problem with thinking, processing data, to be analytical, to be able to make sense of raw data and come up and draw inferences intelligently. Cognition. Brain damage due to lead can impair cognitive capacity. The second area of impact is in executive functions. The person begins to have difficulties with organizing actions, taking decisions, and even sometimes difficulty with, behavior, difficulty in providing leadership, executive functions. And the third area of impact is in fine motor control. The individual can have difficulties in coordinating fine movement, such as picking up small objects. Okay? This was published by, Cecil and his colleagues in the year 2008. And the fourth area of impact is in abnormal social behavior, including aggression. So when lead causes brain damage, when a person is exposed to high levels of lead, it can impact on their cognition, on their executive function, on their fine motor control function, as well as on their social behavior. Now, in children, lead toxicity can also cause decreased IQ, as we have said, and that leads to low academic achievement and reduction in specific cognitive measures. And some studies have found that for every 10 micrograms per deciliter of blood increase in blood lead levels, when blood lead levels increases by 10 points, okay, children's IQ was found to be lowered by 4 to 7 points. This was also published, in 1990 by Winnicke and his colleagues. Fulton and his colleagues published another one in 1997. Lansdowne and his colleagues published another one in 1986. Hawk and his colleagues, another one in 1986. Schroeder and his colleagues in 1985. Yule and his colleagues in 1981. All of these saying that for every 10 points elevation in lead, the amount of blood lead levels in a child, the IQ of that child will drop by 4 to 7 points. That's how lead can impact on different departments of life. So we are not doing our children any good when we put Tiro in their eyes and when we expose them unnecessarily to lead. That's why we must, understand all the different sources of lead and how to minimize our exposure. And for those who are already high in lead, you may want to talk to your, integrative physician, functional medicine physician, to consider what you can do to chelate lead out of the body, because lead can be chelated from the body. There are chelating agents that can get them out, easily. If you do it the wrong way, it can actually create more problems. That's why you need to meet with experts, with functional medicine practitioners, okay, integrative doctors, and they can help you in detoxing your body in particular, if you think that lead might be, one of the things in your body. The starting point, of course, is to test. You carry out a test to see whether you have lead in your body. We will get to that. There's hair analysis, there's blood analysis, urine analysis, different ways to check for lead in the body and other toxic metals. So this is how far we can go today on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. I hope you enjoyed the evening with me. I look forward to seeing you on the same platform on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching from, next week, Monday, 8 p.m. West African time. And don't forget that what we need is not more medication, but more education. For the best prescription is knowledge. See you next week, God willing. Bye-bye, and God bless you.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at the 5F conference coming to you this September. This one-of-a-kind conference is designed to focus on 5 key areas: faith, family, future, finance, and fitness. Prepare yourself for an extraordinary session with our dynamic 5F conference speakers, Reverend Tony Akinyemi, Pastor Wole Abayomi, Professor Bamitale Omole, Pastor Wesley Ogude, and Reverend Austin Upohe. Secure your spot now at 5fconference.tsfchurch.com.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.
Discover the secrets of optimal well-being, explore nutrition, exercise, and many more as our expert instructors guide you through this transformative journey. This comprehensive training will take place from 28th of August to the 1st of September 2023, with sessions running from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily at 18 Shogunle Street, off Mobolaji Bank Anthony Way, between Sheraton Hotel and Eko Hospital, Ikeja, Lagos. Whether you're a beginner or someone seeking to deepen your understanding, this training is perfect for all levels of knowledge and experience. For any inquiries or further assistance, feel free to contact us at 0806 7020 412 or email us at registrar@rafainstitute.org.